The billionaire U.S. financier Jeffrey Epstein has been found dead in his prison cell while awaiting trial for sex trafficking. Reports say he took his own life. The news comes just a day after a Manhattan court released 1,200 pages of documents detailing lurid claims of the alleged abuse of teenage girls by Epstein. He was reportedly found hanged in his prison cell early Saturday morning. He was about to face trial after new evidence emerged of the abuse of thousands of underage girls and over the creation of a sex trafficking network between the years 2002 and 2005. The financier could have faced up to 45 years in prison. He had repeatedly denied all the charges against him. Prior to his arrest in July, Epstein had boasted of his close ties to the British Duke of York, Prince Andrew, former US President Bill Clinton and Donald Trump. 2 weeks ago, the 66-year-old had been placed on suicide watch after an initial attempt to take his life, reported.
Are we expecting any public statements from the people who ran this jail as to how on earth this person was alone, allegedly, and was able to either remove himself or be removed from the scope of justice, by leaving this world? Like, is there going to be a public statement? Are you expecting anything today?
There will be a public statement, I'm told. I don't think it's going to answer all the questions you have. I think it's probably going to be very basic in nature, given what we saw after the previous incident. They did not say much except to confirm that something had taken place. There's an incredible photo on the New York Post website right now that shows Epstein being wheeled in by paramedics this morning, and they're working hard to try to revive him as he's wheeled into the downtown hospital, where he was pronounced dead about 7:39 this morning. Again, he was found around 6:30 this morning. We are told now from 5 sources he was alone in his cell, and that suicide appears to be the leading cause here. But of course, as you're hearing, there will be an investigation. In the previous incident, there was less clarity, in part because he shared a cell with a roommate. And the defense lawyer for that other inmate had said the two were getting along fine, no assault took place, and that Epstein apparently had tried to take his own life in that previous incident. How serious an attempt that was, there's a lot of debate and question about that, whether it was just a cry out for attention. Again, we are told from multiple sources he was having a very difficult time inside the MCC. He's an accused child sex offender. He is accustomed to the life of luxury with his mansions, and now he's sitting in the MCC, which is a very secure facility where drug dealers, terrorists, you name it, are held in that facility. He was put in a separate wing for high-risk inmates. First he had a roommate, then after that initial incident, he was moved to his own cell and for a time was on suicide watch. We only have one official, but it's a good one official telling us he was recently taken off suicide watch, but remained in an isolated cell. We're waiting to hear clarity on that detail from the Bureau of Prisons to see exactly when and if he was taken off suicide watch and what that meant for the items and clothing he had in his own cell. Because if you're on suicide watch, we're told there are no sheets, there are no blankets, that you are watched quite carefully. But of course, we also hear stories about people who are on suicide watch and in isolation, and they wind up using their pants or whatever minimal clothing they are provided. So the question is, how closely was he being watched? Is the expectation 24/7? Or is it hourly? Is it every 3 hours? What is the correct protocol with an inmate like this? And I think those are some of the questions that need to be raised and need to be answered. But everything we're being told from now 5 sources is that this is an apparent suicide.
Jonathan Dean, great reporter. Thank you very much. Really appreciate you being here to give us some answers on that.
Some breaking news right now. Disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein has taken his own life while he was behind bars here in New York City. Epstein was facing sex trafficking charges. NBC News investigative correspondent Tom Winter now has the very latest. Tom, what more do we know?
Peter, what we know now is that at 6:39 this morning, the fire department and EMS here in New York City got a phone call from MCC, which is a federal detention facility here in Manhattan in New York City, where Jeffrey Epstein was being held awaiting trial. They took him to New York's downtown hospital. He was in cardiac arrest. And he was pronounced there. What we know from officials that have been briefed on what happened, he was found and appeared that he had hung himself in his cell or wherever he was being held within MCC, and he was found by prison officials this morning, and that's when they reached out and they called EMS in unsuccessful attempts to revive him. So that happened early this morning, and right now what we're trying to do is figure out if he was still on suicide watch, because there was an incident that occurred several weeks ago where he injured himself. It wasn't quite clear if that was an attempt on his life, an attempt to perhaps stage an attack. The details of that were never really kind of hashed out, if you will. So this morning there's some significant questions on how somebody who it was such a high-profile defendant, somebody who had connections that went up to a current president, could be found dead, and how this could have happened.
Yeah, Tom, you're exactly right. Again, for our audience just joining us right now, NBC News has now confirmed that financier Jeffrey Epstein has taken his own life at a jail here in New York City. We will, of course, be following the latest developments over the course of this day.
We're back right after this.
I'll have to reestablish the shot because I'm going into London right now. But if you could make a call to MCR and ask which line to put that in on and the recording. Correct. He's going to be on the street. I don't know exactly when he's meeting me yet, but sometime soon. He's about a 15-20 minute walk.
Breaking news coming in from the United States. It's being reported that Jeffrey Epstein, the U.S. financier who was facing charges of sex trafficking, has committed suicide. U.S. media is reporting that the 66-year-old has been found dead in his cell in a New York facility. This, according to the Reuters news agency, in a Manhattan jail cell. Some of the charges Epstein was facing relate to sexual relations with underage girls between 2002 and 2005. He was arrested on July the 6th. Now, Epstein was a friend of some of the most rich and powerful people in the United States. At least one of his accusers claims he forced her to have sex with at least half a dozen of those prominent figures. In the past few minutes, just to repeat the breaking news that's being reported across U.S. media outlets, is that Jeffrey Epstein has committed suicide inside his Manhattan jail cell where he was awaiting trial on these charges of sex trafficking. We'll have more as we get it, but this is all we have at the moment, that he has died through suicide. As I say, stay with TRT World. As soon as we get more, we'll bring it to you.